Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Modern democracy often claims to be the absolute pinnacle of human rights. Yet we look around and we're just drowning in systemic inequality and political corruption. But what if I told you the definitive blueprint for justice wasn't actually written in some 21st century summit, but in a 7th century desert? Today, we're challenging everything we assume about the origins of just governance. We're going to explore a mandate so profound, it honestly renders a lot of our contemporary charters surprisingly obsolete.
Seriously, look at the systemic inequality today, and we really have to ask ourselves, is modern democracy truly the pinnacle? I mean, despite all our cutting-edge technology and advanced systems, 21st century governance often feels completely disconnected from the actual individual, right? We see marginalized populations constantly struggling and bureaucratic systems that seem to prioritize raw political survival over basic human dignity. It really forces us to wonder, have we actually perfected the system, or did we somehow lose the plot along the way?
So, what if the most comprehensive manifesto for human rights wasn't drafted by a massive committee of thousands in the modern era? What if it was penned by just a single individual over 1,400 years ago? This historical correspondence fundamentally challenges this whole idea that human rights were somehow invented by modern institutions. Actually, it suggests that our contemporary charters might just be striving to play catch-up to one ancient text.
Section 1. The Radical Mandate, a 7th century blueprint.
To really grasp the immense power of this document, we have to look at the incredibly intense historical crucible it was born in. Picture this. It's the mid-7th century, and the expanding Islamic state is completely engulfed in profound socio-political instability. In 656 CE, a brutal civil war, known as the First Fitna, breaks out. Right in the middle of armed insurrections and absolute chaos, Caliph Ali ibn Abi Talib, or Imam Ali, appoints a trusted military commander named Malik al-Ashtar to govern the highly volatile province of Egypt. To guide him, Ali drafted a lengthy document of instruction known as Letter 53. Out of extreme violent conflict came not some manual of imperial conquest, but a meticulously organized framework for ethical governance. It's really quite incredible. Think about it. Modern governance so often operates on reactive policies and extraction-based politics, but Imam Ali's mandate demanded the exact opposite: proactive justice and administrative mercy. He argued that state power has to function as a shield of protection, absolutely not a machine of exploitation. The ruler is strictly accountable, and not just to the people, but morally and divinely. That means true leadership is measured by how effectively it serves the most vulnerable, not by how well it sustains its own power. And when advising his new governor on how to handle the incredibly diverse population of Egypt, Ali laid down a rule that was absolutely radical for the 7th century. He wrote, "They are either your brothers in faith or your equals in humanity." Just let that sink in. That singular sentence completely shattered religious, ethnic, and social boundaries. It anchored the rights of citizens purely in their shared humanity, a true game changer.
Moving on to Section 2, the Architecture of Mercy, Mechanics of the Letter.
The letter intricately maps out society like a giant interdependent ecosystem. We're talking the army, civil officers, the judiciary, revenue collectors, merchants, and the destitute. He stressed this highly advanced concept: the state only functions when every single gear in this social machine is treated fairly. No class can afford to just go it alone. The progress and stability of the entire civilization rely heavily on recognizing that the elite and the marginalized are inherently tethered together.
And way ahead of its time, the mandate also institutionalized judicial independence. Ali actually instructed Malik to pay judges so handsomely that they would never need to beg, borrow, or resort to corruption. He demanded they be placed entirely above executive pressure, fear, or favor. This essentially ensures that the judiciary cannot be bought or bullied by the political elite. I mean, that's a cornerstone democratic principle that the modern world is still actively fighting to maintain today.
Imam Ali also strictly prohibited authoritarianism. He explicitly warned his governor, "Do not say, 'I am your overlord and dictator,' and that you should, therefore, bow to my commands." The text argues that ruling through dictatorship and arrogance fundamentally corrupts the heart. It weakens faith, and it creates inevitable chaos within the state. Because power is a sacred trust to manage, right? It is never a personal privilege to just be abused.
Now, we've all had to deal with bad management at some point, and this document actually provides a brilliant psychological profile of who not to hire for your inner circle. Listen to this. Surrounding yourself with a miser will basically paralyze you with the fear of poverty, preventing necessary generosity. A coward? They'll cheat you of your resolve when decisive action is needed. and a greedy counselor will inevitably encourage you to become a tyrant just to satisfy their own desires. It's essentially a 7th century masterclass in executive team building.
Section 3. Fiscal Equity and Justice, Protecting the Marginalized.
Here, the document offers an absolutely searing critique of elite privilege. Ali warns that the wealthy, privileged few are a heavy burden during times of peace, they complain the loudest, and they'll quickly abandon the state during a crisis. On the flip side, the working masses are the true pillars of society. They're the ones who defend it and uphold it. Therefore, he says, state justice must completely center on them, rather than bending over backwards to appease the elite.
And taking that a step further, justice here isn't just passive equality. The ruler must actively protect the destitute, the unemployed, and the disabled, precisely because they lack the resources and influence to advocate for themselves. The state is literally obligated to provide specific, direct support to ensure their basic needs are met. This is a profound, binding mandate for social welfare that echoes long before modern entitlement programs even existed.
Which brings us to Section 4, a blueprint for humanity, global validation.
Now, if you're thinking this is just some obscure historical footnote, you've got to see how the highest global institutions view this exact letter today. In 2002, after reviewing 160 pages of historical documentation on early Islamic governance, the UN Committee of Human Rights formally recognized Imam Ali as the fairest governor who appeared during human history after the Prophet Muhammad. They actively called on world rulers to study and implement his humanitarian method of ruling because it so powerfully revealed the true spirit of social justice.
And get this, a few years prior, on the 50th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1997, UN Secretary General Kofi Annan quoted the very same letter. He highlighted that equals in humanity directive we talked about, stating with total conviction that these words must be adhered to by all organizations and embraced by all of humanity. This 7th century text was explicitly held up as a model for global peace and security.
And it goes beyond just the UN Human Rights Committee. The United Nations Development Program explicitly urged Arab nations to use these exact teachings to eradicate corruption, ensure justice to all, and build democratic representation. Meanwhile, modern academics and political theorists routinely analyze Letter 53 right alongside foundational democratic texts like the Magna Carta and the Federalist Papers. Its ongoing influence on global governance thought is just undeniable.
Objective scholars from entirely different backgrounds are honestly staggered by this text. George Jordac, a prominent Christian historian, noted an incredible parallel. He pointed out that while the United Nations Charter was drafted by thousands of intellectuals from around the world over weeks and months, this comprehensive, essentially flawless blueprint for human rights was enunciated by just one person over a millennium earlier. It really puts things into perspective.
Finally, Section 5, the Timeless Challenge.
So what should we take away from this explainer as we look at the ongoing struggles of our world today? Well, it leaves us with a truly provocative question. As we examine the systemic failures of our modern democracies, have our contemporary charters truly progressed? Or are we, in reality, still just striving to catch up to a 1,400-year-old standard? Perhaps the definitive architecture for protecting human dignity and establishing true justice has simply been waiting for us in the desert all along.